Hi and welcome to this video lesson. My name is Couto and today we will talk about the tamborim and the 4 Carreteiro turning techniques that I just played for you. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Couto and today we will talk about the tamborim. First things first, there are different models of tamborims. There are metal tamborims, there are wooden tamborims, there are tamborims with natural skins, with plastic skins. It's really a question of what type of music you want to play. But in the samba that is played in the samba schools in Rio de Janeiro, you will only find metal tamborims with plastic skins. Another detail about the tamborims is the number of the lugs and the size of the body. I personally prefer a bigger body, but that's because of the way I hold it. I will talk about it later. And the number of lugs depends a little bit also on the way you hold it and how you feel more comfortable. The more lugs, the better you can tune it. And the less lugs, sometimes the more comfortable it is for your hand. So I personally go for 6 lugs, but I know that most of the people prefer 8. So let's talk about the way you hold the tamborim. The classic way to hold the tamborim is with your small finger outside like this. That's the classic way. But some people have 2 fingers outside, 3 fingers outside, or even all fingers inside. It's a bit up to you. There is no right or wrong. It's how you feel more comfortable. The only thing that you have to pay attention on is that when you want to play the Carreteiro technique, the turning technique, you have to turn your tamborim on its own axis, on the axis of your arm. So if you have all your fingers inside, you have to hold your wrist a little bit up like this, a little bit bent in this direction. Otherwise, if you hold it relaxed, you would have this movement, and that's not right. That's not a good movement. So you have to hold your wrist a little bit tensed so that you can turn it on its own axis, as if your arm would continue here, and then you could turn it like this. So if you have one finger outside, you can relax your wrist a little bit more and still turn your tamborim on its own axis. Yeah. I personally hold the tamborim with all my fingers inside. And that's the main reason why I prefer a bigger tamborim, so that when I hold it like this, my fingers are not touching the skin. If I would hold the tamborim like this, a smaller tamborim would be fine for me. Yeah, but because I hold it like this, I prefer the bigger one. Another reason why I prefer the bigger tamborim is because the sound is a bit fuller, it's a bit richer. The tamborim stick. There are different types. Some people have only 1 end, some people have 3 ends, like I have here now. Some people have 5 or 7 ends. This is a bit question of taste and a question of which technique you play. For some techniques, it's better to have more ends and a more flexible stick. And for other techniques, it's a bit easier when you have a single stick, or it's a bit stiffer. In my case, I prefer a single stick, but to be able to play all techniques well, I play a stick with 3 ends, so I have like a middle way between very flexible and very stiff. About the position, there is no right or wrong, but I would say you hold your tamborim in front of you, so you don't hold it down here. You also don't hold it very much up here, but you hold it in a relaxed way in front of your body, and you form like the letter V, like this. Yeah, so you have it in front of you, and you can still see your tamborim, and you can see the director in front of you, and you can play relaxed in front of you. For some techniques, it's better to have a smaller angle. So you go a bit more like this. And for other techniques, it's a bit helpful to have a bigger angle. Let's talk about the tuning. The tamborim is a high-tuned drum, but be careful not to tune it too high. If you tune it too high, it has no tone anymore. It's just a sharp attack, and there is no tone coming out anymore. So make sure, listen to a lot of other players and listen to recordings until you get the right sound that you like, until you get the tuning that you like. And be careful, you always need to tune the drum according to the stick that it will be played with. So if you have a stick that has only one end, the note that it will produce will be lower than if you play the same tamborim with a stick with 7 ends. The sound, the note, the pitch will be much higher if you have more ends on your stick. Okay, now let's talk about the carreteiro, about the famous turning technique for the tamborim. In my opinion, there are 4 different types of carreteiro. There is the classic 3-1 technique, or what some people call the old carreteiro. There is the more modern 2-1 technique, where you need the flexibility of your stick to be able to produce 2 sounds with 1 movement. There is the very rare 1-on-1 technique, where you turn the tamborim on each stroke. And there is another technique that I personally call 2-2, because it's a kind of a mixture between the 3-1 and the 2-1 technique, but you actually do 2 hits from the back side of the tamborim. So let's talk about the first carreteiro technique. The 3-1 technique is the classic one. And to start with this, let's talk about history. I'm not sure if it's really true or if it's a fairy tale, but people say that this technique came up when people changed a little bit the classic pattern for tamborim. The very classic pattern before they were turning the tambourines, it was something like this. So people said that when they were playing this, they thought it looks nice if they just turn the tamborim on the last note before playing with their finger on the backside. So they were playing something like this. And then they said that they recognized that on the way back, instead of playing the finger here, they could also play a note here and play. And that's how the carreteiro technique was born. So I don't know if that's a true story or if that's a fairy tale, but I like the story and it makes sense to me. So maybe it's true. So let's look at the 3-1 technique in detail. First, the position. Some people say you have to really stay very narrow like this with your arm and your stick. I personally think that's important to always play rim shots so that this angle is always the same of your tamborim and your stick. But here you can relax and play like this instead of playing like this and be very tensed. That's a little bit up to you, I would say. I don't play like this. This would make me feel tensed and not feel relaxed. So I play a bit more like this. This is really up to you. If you go to Rio, you will find so many different players playing completely different. So in my opinion, there is no right or wrong. There is the way that is the best for you, that you feel more relaxed, that you feel more comfortable to play. So it is important to have rim shots in all of your notes. That is a rule for all the techniques. So otherwise you won't be hurt, you know. You would have to put in much more energy to play a bit louder, but as soon as you play the rim shots, then the sound will be loud enough. Yeah. So make sure to always hit the rim and the skin at the same time. So that's why you have to have this very short angle here on the skin and the stick. The 4 different notes that you need for the 3-1 Carreteiro are the following. I will do it from the side so you can see it properly. The first note is just from the top. Second note is from the top, but turning the tamborim down, so passing the tamborim. The third note is coming up, so it's exactly the opposite of the note before. And the fourth note is from the top again. So if you repeat this slowly, okay, a little bit faster. And a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. And even a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the 3-1 Carreteiro. Very important is, as you have a lot of work on your right arm, you need a little natural tension, of course, to play like this. But you need to relax. So sometimes it's even more important than to concentrate on playing is to concentrate consciously on relaxing. So sometimes when you're playing, especially if you're playing for a longer time, try to think about relaxing your arm. Yeah, that is very, very important. Otherwise, you will not be able to play for a longer time. And a few more technical advices. Your left hand has very little work. It just needs to turn the tamborim like this. It actually doesn't really need to turn the tamborim very far in the 3-1 technique. But your right hand has a lot of work. So you have to make sure that you share the work. So you work a little bit with your fingers here, especially for the 4th and for the first 16th note, for the papa, 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 papa. You use a little bit more of your fingers, and you use a little bit of your wrist. Yeah. And sometimes you will even use your elbow a little bit. But of course, only a little bit, because your elbow is slower than your wrist or your fingers. Yeah. So you just make sure that you relax everything and everything can move naturally. Okay, now let's talk about the 2-1 technique. The 2-1 technique is a bit more modern, and it really needs the flexibility of a stick. The 3-1 technique, you could actually just play with a simple wooden stick and it would work. But the 2-1 technique, that's impossible. So why 2-1? Because it has 2 movements from the top and 1 movement from the bottom that, of course, produce 2 sounds. So some people say 2-1 is wrong because in every beat there are 4 16th notes. So it needs to be 4. It needs 2 and 1 makes 3. So it's not right. And yeah, that's true. But it's only because of the movement, not because of the notes. The notes are 4, of course. So what happens is that the flexibility of your stick, if you would see it in slow motion, the stick would make a movement like this and then come up again. So when you play the note from the movement from the bottom, you would play 1 and then kind of stick to the drum, and the stick would do a second note coming up. So that's why playing it slow and playing it fast is different. It's not so easy to say the way that you play slow is the same way when you play fast. I will explain you slow, and then later I will give you some exercise how to rehearse the fast playing as well. Let me explain first all the notes. The first note is from the top, but it will pass the tamborim, and you will turn the tamborim. So it's like this. The second note is a little bit different. So you will not just hit the drum and come back up, but you will hit the drum, and then you will stick with this plastic to the rim of your drum. Yeah? Something like this. And if you do that, you have a little tension upwards, which will create this angle, as you can see, this angle of the skin and your stick. Yeah, this kind of tension here, this kind of angle that you create. And now when you turn back the tamborim, you will produce the third note. The fourth note is the same in both techniques. It's just from the top. Of course, when you do it slow, you can create this tension here to create this angle here. But when you do it fast, the flexibility of your stick will do that work for you. Yeah, so you will not feel as if you're doing two movements, but it will feel like one movement, and it will create two sounds. So that you can save the movement, I will play very slow for you now. Now let's go a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. And a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. And a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. One very common mistake I see sometimes is that people stick to the drum. So that I think some people teach it like this. It might work, but mostly it doesn't, unfortunately. So some people say that the first note you should stick to the drum and then turn. And the problem of this is that sometimes you will create a sliding sound. And that's not what you want. That's why I teach the first note passing the drum and then coming back from the bottom. But I will repeat, there is no right or wrong. If the other way works for you and you will not create this sliding sound, that's completely fine. So how can I play fast now? You will recognize that you will come to a speed where you think, I can't play faster than this. But it is possible. It's actually not so difficult in this technique. It's more a question of exercising it and understanding that it needs to pass a certain speed and a certain point, and you need to let go a little bit so that you can play fast. So I have some exercises for you to rehearse the fast playing. First exercise. You need to do one note from the top on the tambourine, and in exactly the same moment when you hit the drum, you turn your tambourine once there and back. Yeah, and then this should create 3 notes, something like this. This should create 3 even notes, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, not something like ba ba ba, ba ba ba, ba ba ba. It will naturally always go a little bit in this direction, but it should not be exaggerated like this. This will help you later with the swing, but not too exaggerated. Otherwise, it will not fit together with the other instruments. So make sure your right hand does only one movement, just hitting down and nothing else. There is no pushing upwards later. There is no other movement with your right hand later. And your left hand just turns one there and back, and that's it. Sometimes you don't turn far enough, or you turn too far. If you turn too far, you sometimes get this click sound instead of having the sound of the skin. Try around a little bit. That's one exercise which would be good to have a real teacher around you who could say, oh no, you're turning too far, or no, you have to turn a little bit further, you know. The next step then would be to add the next note, which is the 4th note. So important is that it's coming straight after the 3 notes. So it would be something like this. Yeah, so make sure it's pa 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 pa, pa 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 pa, and not pa 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 pa, pa 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 pa, yeah, and not pa pra pa, pa pra pa. It's really pa 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 pa, pa 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 pa, pa 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 pa. So you would add then one more note, and then you have 5 notes, so you play the next beat. So you would have one complete beat, something like this. And there you already have an exercise that you could play when the whole bateria is playing. So when they're playing too fast for you to continue all the time, and they're playing, then you just go tagadagada, 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 tagadagada. If that's too much for you, you can even go just tagadagada, 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 tagadagada. But then after a while, you will get to the point where you can play tagadagada, 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 tagadagada. And then the next step would be to play it 2 times. So you would go tagadagada, 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 tagadagada. Next step, tagadagada, 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 tagadagada. And then the next step, of course, would be yeah, just continue playing the Carreteiro. That's a way how you can slowly move forward. Yeah, you have an exercise that you can start with and then slowly build it up until one day you will play Carreteiro all the way through. The next technique is very rare. I have seen 1 or 2 people in Rio playing like this sometimes, but it's not really a technique that people use a lot, which is the 1-1 technique. It's more used for variations or something, or to show off, but it's not a technique that you will really see somebody playing all the time. But to make the video complete, I decided to add it. And yeah, you just play 1 note down and 1 note up, and that's it. The difficult part about it is to not play it too straight, to add a little bit of this samba swing. So slowly it would be something like this. And now when you get faster, you can add a little bit of this swing. So you would not play something like this. But you would try to make to add a little bit of the samba swing. So in the samba swing, the second and third note, they come a bit closer together. So the note that you're playing from the downside and then the next from the upside would go a little bit closer together. So you would play something like this. By the way, this is also the traditional technique for the frigideira, this little steel pans that some players play, for example, in the battery of Beija-Flor de Nilópolis. Now let's come back to the 2-2 technique. This 2-2 technique is very young. I sometimes observed some people in Rio playing a little bit different, and I always kept asking, what technique exactly do you play? Do you play 3-1 or 2-1? And they always said they play 3-1. But I always recognized that they are a bit more relaxed and that it looks a bit different, that their arm is going outside a little bit, and something was different. And I never figured out what it was until, I don't know what year it was, when the first mobile phones came out that had slow motion camera. So we recorded one of those guys with a slow motion camera, and then we later saw that it's not 3-1, but it turns into some kind of 2-2 when those guys play fast and strong. So I wanted to learn how to play like this because I saw that they were more relaxed, and I thought, I have to learn that. I have to find the way how they do it somehow, and I tried to observe well what they are doing, what are they changing in the movement and everything, and I managed to play like this, but I recognized I also can't do it slow. But anyway, I will try to explain how it works, and you will have at least an idea, and maybe one day you will find it and you will get to the point where you can play like this. And if not, that's no problem. There are many players who play 2-1 or 3-1 without any problems, and it's a question of what technique do you prefer. So the difference actually between the 3-1 and the 2-1 is that the second note is not played from the top anymore. In the 3-1 technique, you play 1 and then 2, 3. And in the 2-2 technique, you play 1 and you already passed the tamborim somehow. And then you play 2, 3. But the movement is somewhere in between the 3-1 and the 2-1 and something. It's hard to explain, and it only happens when you play fast. What I found out, what helped me to learn this technique is to push my arm forward. So when I was playing 3-1, every beat, I was kind of pushing my wrist forward, so that every time I'm playing, takalaka, 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 I'm pushing my wrist a little bit forward so that I get more power on the beat, and the energy kind of stops it from playing from the top. So it goes something like 1, and then the second is supposed to be like this, but it's already here, so it's kind of somewhere in between. So I will try to play for you now 3-1, and then try to push forward my wrist a little bit, and then turn into the 2-2 technique. Let's see if you can find the difference. 1, 2, 3, 4. Have you seen the difference? All right, I think that's it. That's all about the Carreteiro technique, about the turning technique. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, if you have any wishes, please put them in the comments and I will try to answer as soon as possible. If you have any wishes for something that I should play for you, I should record, please put it down in the comments as well. I will try to record as soon as possible. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye bye.